My guest today is an online building materials company. They're doing £15 million turnover. They've got over 90,000 products on their website, and they're struggling to grow. They are, like so many in the building trade, having a little bit of a rough time with everything going on in the wider economy, and they've come on the pod to talk about how they can continue growing in tough economic times. It's going to be a good one, this. Let's get into it. Welcome to Grow With Evergreen, the podcast designed to help you grow your business by providing practical insights into all things paid media, creative, and digital strategy. Every episode, we help home, garden, and lifestyle brands with their growth challenges by delving into their business, dissecting what they're doing, and defining a digital growth strategy they can take and deploy into their business. Let's get into it. Right, hello, welcome back, beautiful people. Today's going to be a really interesting one. We've got John Paul joining me on the pod. He runs a great business, or actually it's a group of businesses in the building trade. And today specifically, we're going to be talking about buildforless.co.uk. An interesting brand, very established brand. They're doing about 15 million online. They have got 90,000 SKUs, as I said, on the website. So pretty chunky website. And John Paul's coming on the pod because, as so many in this space are seeing, it's pretty tough out there. You know, I think a lot of people in the building trade and a lot in the home improvement space, which is a lot of what we do, you know, so that home, garden, lifestyle, we do a lot in the home improvement space. And I think the consensus we've seen from a lot of the clients we work with and prospective clients is that, look, COVID was pretty good. You know, whether it was in COVID or just after you came out of COVID, it was boom time. You know, a lot of businesses really saw some good gains through that period. And then as, you know, we got into 2023 and then into 2024, you know, it's been tough. It's been hard. There's definitely increased competition, which in turn is driving up. If you're running ads, we're seeing cost per acquisition increase. We're seeing, you know, it's becoming more and more expensive and difficult to get in front of that customer at that right time. Then staying top of mind is difficult and expensive. And so I think a lot of businesses, and speaking to John Paul just before we came on, are, you know, overall they're doing okay, but I think they're having to work hard to maintain and harder still to actually try and grow. So today, what we're going to get into is, with this very established business, how do we keep growing? How do we maintain and look to improve that ROAS, that return on ad spend? And then, you know, with ever increasing competition, what can we do? You know, I've got so many questions for our guests today in terms of what they're doing, how they're doing it, what's working. I did find out before we came on air that he does everything in-house. So he's not using an agency. He's tried using agencies in the past, hasn't worked, taken it in-house, got a good team that really know their stuff and are doing a good job. You'll be amazed at some of the ROAS figures that he's mentioned that they're doing, but I want to get into and find out if that is actually accurate. So we'll cross that bridge. This could be an interesting one. What else can I tell you? He's got a few questions that we're going to get into towards the back end of the episode. They're doing, in terms of their ad spend, because I like to set the scene for you all. So he's spending about 60K a month on Google ads for the most part. So a lot of Google, a little bit of Bing. We're not delving into social. I think with this space, you know, Google ads, Bing ads, those kind of search intent make all the sense in the world. So I'm glad to see he's doing that. And I'm going to find out what types of campaigns he's running, what's working. I also want to discuss the wider things beyond just paid and really get into that. So there's a lot of ground to cover. And I think it's going to be good fun. Right. John Paul will bring you on. Are you there, my friend?
I am indeed. How are you?
Very well. Very good. How are you doing? You well?
Good. Yeah, I'm great. Yeah.
Excellent stuff. Thank you so much for joining me on the pod. I really appreciate you jumping on. Hopefully I did that little intro, did you justice there. But in your own words, do you want to just give us a little synopsis? What is the business? Sort of over to you.
Yeah, so we're Installation for Less Limited. We've got 4 brands underneath that. So we've got installationforless.co.uk. And then, as you mentioned, we've got Build for Less also. But then we also have Tiles for Less, and then a website that we acquired just over 2 years ago called Building Supplies Online, again, .co.uk. So that kind of abbreviates to bso.co.uk, all of which are in the building space. So obviously Installation for Less is more of your kind of insulation dedicated website. Then Build for Less is everything, you know, from your carcassing timber, your garden furniture, you know, right up to your chimney pots, everything that's required to build a house. BSO.co.uk is actually quite similar. It was a website that we took on just to acquire more market share. And then we have Tiles for Less, which is everything to do with tiling, ceramic tiling, floor, wall, kitchens, etc.
Okay, good stuff. And so, as overall, we're doing about 15 minutes. When did you start? How long ago? How long has the business has been around?
So I originally started in Ireland. So I set up a dropship company in Ireland called buildforless.ie. And subsequently, then I actually moved to the US and actually set up websites over in the US. But that proved to be quite difficult. So I parked it for a few years
Right.
and then decided to focus on the UK market. So it was probably, I think it was 2011, if my
Okay.
memory serves me correct, when we set up Installation for Less Limited. And that was just installationforless.co.uk.
Yes. Sure.
So and then over time, then it started to evolve as we started to understand the market better. We were actually the first online insulation company in the UK to set up that was just purely insulation only. Um,
How
so
many? How
uh,
many more are there now? I bet as everyone flooded the market.
yeah, that's completely flooded now. I mean, I could spin 20 other websites off the top of my head that are kind of doing the
Wow.
same.
Wow.
So
And
the
I'm
landscape
curious.
has completely changed.
How recent as that? How when did you see that massive insurgence of more competitors? How recently has that happened?
Since COVID.
Has it? Just
Yeah,
everyone's
yeah,
just gone.
yeah.
It
No,
is
I mean
unbelievable
since
that
COVID.
the rate of competition has we're seeing that again for ours is it's even 2-3 years ago it was not half what it is today, so we're definitely
No,
seeing that.
yeah.
Amazing. So today we want to for the most part talk about build for less, just because that's obviously I think that's one of the bigger within your sort of the portfolio of group, that's arguably the
Hmm.
biggest one,
Yes,
because
correct.
and it's the one with the biggest portfolio of products. It's the one, as I say, it's pretty much everything. If you're building a house, it's pretty much a one-stop shop, right?
Yeah, as I said, you get your carcassing timber, you will get your insulation, you'll get blocks, you'll get bricks, you'll get cladding, internal doors, door handles, anything for your roof tiles, ridge tiles. So I mean, everything is there, and then paving slabs. I mean, everything you want really to build a house is on
Okay.
that website.
Amazing. Right. So, and in terms of just to paint a picture for the viewers, so in terms of teams, there's about 30 team members overall
Uh,
as a business.
about 36 in total.
Okay. Okay. So about
Yeah.
30 team members.
Hmm.
And in terms of right. So before I get into your challenges, I want to just understand from a marketing perspective, if we look at Build for Less in isolation, what what does your marketing activity look like? Obviously, I know you're running Google Ads and you mentioned you're doing a little bit of Bing ads. What else are we doing? So paint me a picture across the different channels, platforms. What does your marketing activity look like?
Well, if we're to exclude what you said, the likes of our paid ads, our newsletters play a big part in our marketing outreach, along with how we communicate with our customers. So we would use Klaviyo
Yep.
for our
Yep.
marketing, for our newsletter marketings. So, and we would have somewhere in the region of between our UK and US sites, there could be 30, 40 newsletters a week going out between all our websites. And then, of
Okay.
course, you have your retargeting on that as well, depending on
Sure.
how our customers react or interact with our newsletters.
Yeah.
That will determine what happens next. And then, of course, you have your sales strategies as well that you would have with your sales team and how they interact with their customers, and how the communication across the business works, even between the sales side and our purchasing teams
Sure.
as well. So that plays a big part on how we move forward, because if we have customers asking for specific types of products and it's something that we don't sell or we haven't got pricing for, it's important that our sales team can communicate that across to our purchasing teams so that they can go off and kind of check if that's a viable product for us to go and actually do a deal with a manufacturer
Yeah. Of course.
on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also then there's the other side of that, whereby just because somebody asks for something doesn't mean we go and get it. So I mean, we will do work in the background from an SEO point of view, for a
Okay.
search engine volume point of view, to see if there's actually search volumes out there for those ranges. Because if there's
Fine.
not, there's no point putting all the effort into putting them up.
Yeah, no, of course, of course. So if we looked at what I always like to do on the pod is to try and get my guests to understand their reliance on their per channel. So do you know if you were to think about year to date, last few months in terms of your overall, because I know we're getting some good numbers. You said that you're getting, well, tell us how many the sort of volumes of traffic you're getting into the websites or on an average month. What does that look like?
Across all 4 of our sites in the UK, you're talking in the region of around 200,000, 100 between 180 and 200,000 a
And
month.
how many of those, if we just took Build for Less as things like as a single site, because I think that'll be easier for people to sort of visualize, is one website, what is it doing in terms of traffic and volume?
It would be between probably 80 and 90,000 a month.
Wow. Okay. And so, of that 80 to 90,000 of traffic volume, do we know when we think about sales? Do we know how reliant the brand is on your? What role is, say, your email marketing and your funnels and your Klaviyo? What role is that playing proportion into the business? Is that accounting for 10% of revenue, 20% higher? What do you know the breakdown? If I was to say to you, how reliant is the brand on when it comes to the traffic you're buying? So those ads versus your emails versus organic. Do you know that split?
I kind of have a rough idea of the split. So, like from an email marketing point of view, you're looking at about 10%.
Okay. Okay.
And then from your ads, your
Yeah.
Google ads, your Bing ads, it's in the region of around 40%, and then the rest would be organic.
Okay.
So it was a point whereby obviously the business was driven by ads, by traffic coming in, by paying for that traffic. But over the years, because our SEO has got so efficient, a lot of our traffic is free traffic that comes in from,
Love that.
organically.
Love that. This is beautiful because you are at the place where so many kind of 1 to 5 mil turnover
Yeah.
brands, where they are exactly what you've described, and you've gone through that pain. So that, so often is the case that brands, when they're doing those first few million online, they are growing, but that growth is coming primarily through paid. They're buying that growth. They're buying those sales. That obviously comes at a
Yeah.
premium, and they end up with a 50, 60, 70% reliance on
Hmm.
Google ads or Bing ads or YouTube or Meta or whatever it is. And that's a big task that we have with a lot of our brands, is we have to say to them, look, you need to dilute down. Yes, we want to grow, but we need to dilute down the overall reliance on paid, because otherwise, if that growth is only coming from one channel, i.e. the traffic you're buying in, you're going to get to a point where you have effectively all your eggs in that paid basket. That's not good, because you're at the mercy of the wider market conditions. You're at the mercy of your competitors doubling down, because effectively you're growing your business via an auction, and that is not a good
Yeah.
place to be. So that's great that you're doing that. One thing I am going to challenge you on, though, you're organic. Are you splitting that direct versus non-direct? Are you splitting that versus brand versus non-brand?
Yes, that is all split out. I don't know what the numbers would be,
Sure.
but that's all tracked internally.
Because
Yeah.
that would be, because that I think is another key thing. So one thing that I've mentioned numerous times on the pod is a concept that we use. We call it the backbone of digital marketing, and we get brands to really think about their reliance per pillar of digital marketing. And I've for years, for more than a decade, I've always looked at any brand online, be it e-com or lead gen, and I've looked at it and I said, look, fundamentally, there are only 4 ways you can grow this brand. You can buy traffic in, and by traffic, I'm traffic, sales, all of that good stuff. You can buy it in through ads. You can own it. That's your direct, your repeat, your brand search. That's people, they're coming direct to you. You own that traffic. They know you. They love you. They're buying from you. They're repeating from you. You own that. Then you've got the traffic that you nurture. That is, that's your email, which you're doing. And
Hmm.
I would also put social media in that bucket, your organic
Yeah.
social, because they're the people you're building a relationship with. They're getting that know, like, and trust. And then I look at the traffic you are earning, which is organic, but I separate brand, because brand sits in the owned bucket. So I kind of have 4
Yeah.
buckets. What am I buying? What do I own? What am I nurturing? And what am I earning? And it's not an exact science, but what it does, when you look at your data, you analyze you pull it out of GA4, you look at GSC, you look at your ads performance. What's really interesting, and you'd be able to do this, and you'd be able to see almost coming out the other side, is as the brand grows year on year, you can see how those trends are changing. So exactly as you said, you might go, well, we used to be 30, 40% reliant on X channel, but actually that's now reducing, because the ideal is that you've got a nice, healthy mix across those 4 pillars. And
Yeah.
what's beautiful about that is it future proofs. Even if a new platform or a new channel comes out, they're always going to fit into one of those 4 buckets.
But I also think it's important to remember that having your ads is vitally important to the business too, because right, okay, where we are right now is probably like the holy grail of e-commerce, right? Because the majority of our traffic comes in organically and it's free.
Yeah,
However,
yeah.
if we were to just turn off our ads, it would be
Oh,
detrimental to our
I mean,
business.
you'd lose
But
30,
also,
40% of your business. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, but also it's very important because Google can decide to change an algorithm tomorrow, and your organic traffic tanks.
This is
And you
exactly the
haven't
point. Yeah.
changed anything online, but yet your organic traffic tanks. So if
Yep.
you're solely relying on your organic traffic, you're going to be in trouble
Oh no,
because
exactly. And
it
this
can
is
happen at any point in time. So you need both running side by
yeah,
side.
you do. You're singing. We're singing on the same hymn sheet. This is exactly the point. Is it's you're, albeit you're the other side in terms of you've got a good reliance on organic, but absolutely that's why I said that this concept and what I am a big advocate of is saying to a brand, like from an agency perspective, I run Evergreen and we provide paid media, we provide creative services. There's things we don't provide, but I am still advocating to brands every single day, saying, "Look, we don't do email marketing, but it absolutely needs to be a part of your business,
Yeah.
marketing strategy. Social media, we don't do it, but you're going to absolutely need to be doing it. So you're
Hmm.
absolutely right that not having all of your eggs in one basket is absolutely key because exactly that. Like Google could change an algorithm, and then you lose some visibility. Similarly, with Google Ads, with your ads, any platform, if the competitor, if the price ramps up, you've got to play ball or you lose that visibility. So it is just having that a nice healthy mix. And I think if you can be growing, I think the holy grail for so many brands watching and listening to this, if you can be growing your brand year on year, despite the economic time, which is what you're doing, and what is brands are working so hard to do, but grow, yes, is key, but within that growth, make sure you're doing it in a sustainable way.
Hmm.
Then that's really the holy grail. That's where you've got to be aiming for. And so I think with yours, understanding your reliance on brand versus non-brand within the organic is going to be key. And then,
Hmm.
I mean, I would still, if you're 40% reliance on paid, I would still be looking to dilute that. I'd be looking at what else can I do with the email? Because I think if email, and I know you said it's not exact, but if email is only 10%, I think there's more to be done with that, in terms of your email marketing. But I think to go back to one of the other points you mentioned is the other thing as well. The great thing with paid, because they're all entwined, they all are linked. The great thing with paid is it's a great top of funnel exercise because I'm going onto Google, there's search intent. I am going to look for a product. I have a need. I am actively looking for something. Again, if you've got good email capture, if you've got your retargeting set up, not only does paid have a direct correlation in terms of the sales, but it's also going to have a knock on. It's going to increase your email, your email lists. It's going to increase the organic because people are going to see the brand next time they're going to search by brand. So it has this
Yeah.
sort of domino effect, which is what you'll be feeling now because in years gone by you would have used paid to grow. Now more people know of you. More people are returning. More people are on your
Yeah.
email list. More people are on social. So it has this sort of domino effect.
Yeah, it does, but it takes time to build all that,
Of course it does. Yeah,
and
exactly.
sometimes what you see with a lot of e-commerce businesses, just this perception in the market that, oh, I'll set up an e-commerce website and I'll just start selling products and
Yeah.
I'll become a millionaire. Great. And I don't have to work for it either.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
ultimately to do e-commerce properly takes a massive investment, and
It does. And
procedures have to be
consistency.
followed
Yeah. Yeah.
correctly, and
Yeah.
consistency. Because if you don't
Yep.
do that and you just think you're going to be able to set up in a backyard shed and just have a laptop and just run your business that way, right? There are some that you will get away with that, but I mean, if we're to look at our model on its own, which will be construction products,
Yes. Yeah.
it's physically impossible to do that because you have customers ringing in looking to change orders, to change delivery addresses, and material might arrive on site damaged or it might arrive late, and so I mean it's almost impossible to automate the business. So it's never as simple as some people might say it is, or some people
Yes.
might
Yeah.
believe. Like I was at a conference last year, and that was over in Turkey, and the whole talk at the conference was every builder's merchant needs to go online. End of story. And every builder's merchant needs to set up an e-commerce website. And I completely disagreed with that because I was like, no, every builder's merchant does not need to go onto e-commerce because it's going to cost them an absolute fortune. And how are they going to be able to compete with a
Yeah.
big business like mine and a couple of others that are in the UK that are solely e-com, and that's all we do. That's our bread and butter. The merchant's
Yeah.
bread and
Yeah.
butter is their bricks and mortar. That's what they're best
Yeah.
at. They're close to their customer. They know their customer. They know them better than we do. So that's their USP. Our USP is online. We're at arm's length to the customer. We don't know the customer as well as the local builder's merchant, but we provide an element of convenience.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
and I mean, the whole concept of every builder's merchant going onto e-commerce was putting the smaller builder's merchant at a financial risk because they're not going to be able to compete with me.
Yeah,
Sure, how
exactly.
can they? You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. No, I'm completely with you. Completely with you. I want to get into your first, because obviously you're a very, you're established business. You're doing well, but we spoke beforehand. It is tough. It's a tough economic climate, and you're at the front. And you're feeling that. So
Mm.
just, and your first market challenge was quite simply to just keep growing. So just expand on that. What did you mean? And yeah, just how can I help, or what, any questions you've got that built around what are the pain points around right now needing to just frankly keep growing?
Well, I suppose, like kind of all things that are in the market, we can see a slight downturn in the economy. So, like I mean, I've I've reforecast our projections for this year. The projections I done probably around October last year as to what we
Okay.
would do this year, and that's down probably 10-15% on my prediction of what it would be. So I'm going off now to reinforce my projections based on what's happened in Q2 this year.
Yeah.
Q1 was good. Q2 started to slow down. Like it kind of happens every year, but it seemed to have taken a bigger dump this year. I mean, there's a lot of things at play here. You have the bad weather. You have holidays, which happen every year, but you also have a lot of sporting events like the Euros are on, and now you
Yeah.
have the Olympics coming up, and people are traveling, people are away, yeah, building sites close down. So it's having a knock-on effect, and then the uncertainty in the market with the elections. So it's kind of like the perfect storm, really. But like I mean, I do kind
Yeah.
of see it kind of coming better later on in the year, and things picking up. But like a lot of people will panic during this time of the year. So I mean, and then you have additional competition that's in the market, and you have people doing silly things online just to gain market share.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
sure,
Yeah.
look, you
Yeah.
just have to suck that up, and you just kind of keep your eye on your own ball. And it's I suppose just look after your own business and not kind of watch what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, well, I think there's a great, you are your own economy, right? And you
Yeah.
can only control what you can control. But I think that we were talking before, it's before we came on, but I think there is, we do a lot in this sort of home improvement space, and there is definitely a sense that I think 2021, 2022 were good. They were good years. 23 was tough, and I think that the early parts of 2024 probably tougher still.
Mm.
I think there's a lot of money sloshing about for sure, and there is but there is definitely some apprehensiveness with regards to pulling the trigger, particularly on a building project or
Yeah.
sizable investments. I think, and that's always we always see the same stuff. Elections is a classic, sort of trigger for people
Yeah.
going, I'm just going to sit tight. I'm just going to
Yeah.
wait
Just
and see.
wait
I
and
mean,
see.
in reality, it's not going to make any difference. It was going to make very little difference
No.
in terms of an actual, but I think it's more
Yeah.
psychologically, people just, there's a nervousness. I'm just going to wait and see. I'm going to hold off until, which is why, a lot of the data we're looking at for a lot of our clients, we're seeing that and predicting that the second half of 2024 is going to be more fruitful than the first half of
Mm.
2024.
Yeah.
I think
I think
because,
it's kind of primarily though a lot of the big pension funds and the big
well,
property developers that will sit back and wait.
yeah.
Like your self-build people, your DIYers, they probably would keep going, but then you see there's hesitancies then from the
Yeah.
banks
Well,
to
it all
release money.
trickles down from there, doesn't it?
It
It
does,
all
yeah.
trickles down. Yeah, yeah, exactly
Yeah.
that. And then we all feel it on the front line. So I think, there is that. But I think, as you say, what you're doing is right in terms of focus on what you can control. There is
Yeah.
a
Well, I
market,
suppose there's a saying that I use that uh, uh, winners focus on winning and losers focus on winners. So, like
I like that.
ultimately,
That's nice. Yeah.
so that's kind of a motto I like to kind of play to. I don't focus on what everybody else is doing. I just focus on what we do.
Yeah. And I think having that real clarity around, that overall reliance of how reliant are we on paid, and what I get the brands we work with to do is have an overarching, we work with them to define their overarching digital strategy. So and that aligns very much to what success looks like for their business. So we say, look, where is the business right now? Where do we want the business? So for your business, you're a 15 million pound business now. You've got pretty lofty plans in terms of, you said you want to get that up to sort of a 20 million turnover,
Yeah,
total turnover business. What time frame have you put on that to achieve that?
the end of next year.
Wow. Okay. And you still,
Yeah.
even though you're reforecasted, that still feels achievable?
Yeah, I think I don't see why not. I think what's probably going to happen in the market is that a lot of these new entrants that have come into the market that are providing additional competition, they're all
They're going to
coming
fall
under.
away.
They're going to fall away. They're coming
Yeah,
under
they are. It's not
financial
sustainable.
pressure.
And we're seeing
It's not
exactly that.
sustainable. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They're
Yeah.
running their campaigns at low ROAS returns. Doesn't
Yeah.
stack up. Once we know, we've done our homework. We know what's needed for a campaign to be profitable in the
Yeah.
construction industry. That's not across the board in every industry. That's in the construction industry. There's a certain
Absolutely.
ROAS that needs to be achieved. And I know for a fact that these guys are running on single digit ROAS, which does not make sense. Your
Yeah. It's not
campaigns are
sustainable.
losing money. It's not sustainable. So eventually you run out of cash.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
as simple as that. It's economics.
Exactly. And and that's what you're going to see. And that's what, again, we're seeing is, it's 2025, 2026 is looking like it's going to be back to the 2021, kind of 2022 sort of era, because things go on a cycle. There is a natural cycle. You've just got to look back over recent history, economically, from a marketing perspective, there is a cycle, a natural evolution. We saw it when Brexit first came out, and the next 5 years up to COVID, we saw the same, very similar sort of things. You see peaks, you see troughs, and I think right now we're in a bit of a lull because of everything that's happened. And so we're having to work harder to maintain. It's why you're having to reforecast. But as you say, if you're planning and thinking 18 months to 24 months ahead, 2025, 2026, I think the brands that have their ducks in a row, that have a good varied portfolio of visibility, that aren't over reliant on a single channel, and crucially, that have an overarching digital strategy that is going to take you up to 20 million, but within
Yeah.
that have clear siloed strategies per channel, per platform. That's really the trigger. So for you, having a very clear strategy on where we are today, where we want to go, and what our paid success strategy looks like, what our organic strategy, branded and non-branded. I think doing more with your email, looking at your social, stuff like that, I think that's going to make the difference. And it's not rocket science, but that's what the smart marketers and the businesses are doing. Whereas the others are just going, we want to grow at any cost, therefore paid's working, we're just going to go all
Yeah.
in on paid, or email's working, we're just going to do nothing but email, we're going to hedge our bets. In times like this, what you don't want to do is just put everything on black. You don't want to
No,
just go, well, do you know what, it's like, you've got to be cautious.
it's like the hockey stick effect. You have a lot of these
My
businesses
man,
that
exactly that. Yeah.
they kind of bring in investors into the business. It's effectively like tying a rope around your neck. We've never brought investment into our business. We've done this all ourselves. But you
That's
have these
amazing.
other e-com businesses, and all that's in their plan. How quickly can I get money? They get money. The investors want them to spend that money as quickly as they possibly can, and hopefully they get the hockey stick effect, which is the curve at the bottom and straight up after that.
Yeah.
And
And we're already seeing
unfortunately,
it. The
yeah, well,
brands
like
that don't get that. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
it's just the times we're in now with a bit of a slowdown in the economy, and then you also have a major influx of additional competitors that have come into the market, completely chops the legs out from underneath you if you want to achieve a hockey stick effect. That's gone now, because it'd be different if it was a few years ago where there weren't 20 or 30 other online businesses selling construction products online, even more, right? So,
Yeah.
but now, if you want to achieve the hockey stick effect, forget about it. It's not happening.
Yeah. And also, what we're already seeing, we're seeing a lot of this, is we're seeing competitors of our clients going bust and really
Yeah.
struggling, because frankly, the business models have not been built sustainably. They've been exactly as we're describing, is almost pilot high, sell it cheap. Let's just focus on market share. Let's just use one primary channel to drive that growth. And actually, it ends up, it's not sustainable. And when times get hard, when customers, there's some reluctance, when things are, the people are waiting, they're sitting, they're holding on to their cash, They feel that these business models can't sustain it. So it's a big part of this is about biding your time and actually, as you say, playing the long game rather than the I need immediate gratification now.
Yeah, but you see the issue with that though, if you bring in an investor, they're dictating the shots and they want their money back. And when things turn slow and they're not getting the growth that they were hoping to continue to get and things level off, you now have investors turning around and going, right, I want my money back now, lads. And you go, well, we don't have the money in the bank, right? Wrap up the company. So wrap it up. I want my money.
No,
and that's what happened with BSO when we acquired BSO. They got wrapped up by an investor because they couldn't pay their bills, but they were running ROASs at like 1 and 2, sure, like or 4 ROAS on campaigns and spending. It just doesn't. Brain dead. It just makes no sense.
I always find funny is I always liken it to like I've always tried to put like digital scenarios like you've just described into a real world situation. And if you liken it to a ROAS of 1 or 2, it's literally like someone walking into your shop and essentially saying, how much does that product cost you? Okay, I'll give you the same as what you bought it for. And I was trying to, in a physical sort of manifestation kind of way, as I liken that and I explain that to a lot of, I say, would you sell that product? If you're selling a product for £10, how much does it cost you to buy? Oh, well, it cost us, £4, £5. I say, what's your margin on it? Okay, well, if I offered you £6, would you take it? No, it's that kind of thing that people just, but I think digitally, because it's ROAS and it's, CPAs and AOVs and LTVs and all these other lovely marketing acronyms, it gets lost, doesn't it, in the noise of that.
Completely.
And it sounds good. And if we get enough volume, we're not Sainsbury's, we're not Tesco's, we're not, SMEs are not built on 1% margins, or 2% where they're dealing on a huge volume. You've got to get that margin. And it's all of that stuff. Fascinating. I love it. Before we go any further, are you enjoying today's episode? If so, you'll love our other show, Tea Talks. They're short, informal chats where the Evergreen experts and I share actionable nuggets on all things paid media, creative, and digital strategy that we use daily when growing our clients' businesses. And best of all, much like this podcast, it's completely free. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, see the link in the description. Now, let's get back to it. Talking about that, maintaining the ROAS was one of the other challenges I wanted to get into. So, and you mentioned you're getting a pretty good ROAS right now. So just what is that looking like and how has it changed? And what do you feel is the challenge with maintaining it right now?
Well, maintaining your ROAS, one of the biggest challenges is kind of, one of the main topics of the conversation today really is competition. You've everybody else coming in starting to market their products or the same products on Google Ads. So, they're going to gain, a couple of percent here market share, and then you have 4 or 5 of them all taking 1-2%. That all adds up at the end of the day. And, ultimately, we try to have a consistent ROAS month on month, and it's vitally important that you do maintain your ROAS as best you can. The odd time you might dip down below it, another time, another month you might be up over, kind of over the course of a year, it all balances out. But it is difficult to maintain the ROAS you need, and you have to be creative. And it's not just about being creative in how you market your products or how they're displayed on Google Ads or Google Shopping or PMax or whatever the case may be. There's other avenues as well on how you're purchasing, and because that all has a direct impact on your ROAS also. Overall, and kind of going back to what you're saying, where you buy it for 10 quid and you might sell it for 12. But what a lot of e-com businesses forget is that you've just paid probably 25 quid to get that customer in to buy that product for a tenner to acquire them.
Exactly.
But I made 20% profit on that product. Well, no, because you actually paid 25 quid to bring them in to buy it in the first place. And that's where your retargeting comes in.
I think it's a really good point, because on that, not that this will necessarily apply for you, because I think you've got, you're going to have good LTVs on it once you get a customer, but there are brands where Google Ads just aren't going to work because the market the market's going to dictate that it doesn't work. It's not that people don't want to buy the product, and it's not that people aren't searching for the product, but it's because the market is going to dictate that you're going to be costed out. It's not going to, economically, it's not going to work, because as you say, by the time you buy the product, you factor in your margin, you factor in the cost per click, you factor in how many clicks it takes to get the customer to buy.
And then your overheads as well.
And then your overheads and all the other stuff. Exactly. And I think the other, the thing, as a general rule, I would say if the average purchase price, so if the average order value for a brand, if your product is less than 30 or 40 pounds, as a general rule, there are some, but as a general rule, I think Google Ads, you're going to really struggle to get a decent
Yeah,
return on it. If your
yeah,
average order value is, 20, 30, 40 quid, you really need, it doesn't matter if you've got some products that are that, and then you've got other higher ticket products. A lot of our clients they might sell products that are 20, 30, 50 pounds, but they'll have products in the hundreds or the thousands.
mm,
That as a business model can really work. But if you're just selling products that, for those that are watching, listening, if all of your products are under 20 quid, unless you are very niche, or
yeah,
unless you can find a very specific audience or solve a very specific pain point that people are searching for, I think Google Ads can be very, any kind of
yeah,
advertising can be very difficult,
yeah,
and there are economies of scale, but you've got to get there, and that's going to be very painful and potentially loss making to get you there in the first place.
yeah.
One question I've got for you, because I know because you haven't said on the pod, but we said in the pre, but the ROAS you're maintaining, you say it's about 15, right? So you're getting
Yes.
a crack, which I think a lot of people will be amazed you're hitting that. I would be interested to know what the brand versus non-brand split of that is. If you were to exclude brand, what that looks like. I've got a couple of questions. Firstly, what types of campaigns are you running across your Google Ads? If we just look at Google Ads, because I know you said that's about 90% of your ad spend. So you're spending a good,
Yeah,
50, 60K plus a
yeah,
month
yeah.
on Google Ads. If you're getting a 15 times return, people would look at that and go, that's amazing. What types of campaigns are we running?
So obviously you have your PMAX campaigns, and they be running, and we would have some of them which would have all our products in them, and then we would have other ones that would be kind of split out
Yep.
into specific brands without kind of going into too much detail and kind of giving
Yeah, yeah.
away kind of
Yeah,
secrets for
yeah,
our
yeah, yeah, yeah.
competitors. But like, and then also you have your search as well, and then like ultimately between search, PMAX campaigns, and then your Bing as well, every one of those campaigns has to pay. That's it.
Of course.
If
Yeah, yeah.
your campaigns are not stacking up, turn it off,
Yeah,
because all you're
yeah.
doing is making Google richer. Google will keep taking your money, no problem.
Oh,
They
absolutely.
don't
Oh,
care.
yes.
They'll
Yeah,
just
yeah.
give you
Yep.
reports. But like at the end of the day, if you tell Google you want to spend 500 quid a day on PMAX campaigns for a specific product range, it'll spend your money. Eventually, it'll spend your
Yeah,
money.
easy. Yeah, no,
You
it will.
know,
It will. Are you
to
running any
be
standard shopping?
yes, we're running standard shopping as well. Yeah,
Are
yeah.
you
But I
running? Are
mean, a
you
lot of
running?
that's taken over by PMAX now, though, as well.
Oh, so that's interesting. So, and what is it, when you were running standard shopping? Were you seeing better, or worse in terms of performance versus performance max? Like, is performance max
Yeah.
working for you right now?
It's interesting actually, because when we first started with PMAX, it just wasn't thrown out the ROAS we needed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It,
Yep.
it was like as if it was still in a learning phase itself.
I
But
think it was.
now at this point, we're finding PMAX is performing better than
Okay.
most of our other campaigns.
Have you got any products or product categories that you're doing both performance max and shopping?
Yes, everything.
Are you right? So you're running through. So yeah, well,
Yeah, yeah.
so
But like the
if you were
majority would be, I mean, the highest funded accounts will be the PMAX.
fine. So if you are, yeah. So if you, but so as a general rule, I wouldn't advise having the same products in Performance Max shopping because Google favors Performance Max,
Yes,
right?
it
So
does. Yeah.
that's fine. So if it's not a fair competition because if you put
Hmm.
the same product in, Google's going to go, well, Google
Yeah.
wants to prioritize Performance Max. That said, just as something you might want, I know you do all this in house, so you might want to have a word with your chap that does it. But it might be an interesting experiment for you guys to take a category or two in isolation, remove it from the Performance Max campaigns, put it into standard shopping, and just run an experiment and compare performance. Because we've got
Mm.
campaigns that are spending upwards of 30 grand a month that are hugely reliant or focused on standard shopping, not Performance Max. And we
Hmm.
did that, and we experimented with it over many months, and we got a few clients that are doing this, and we found that actually standard shopping, because of the type of product, because of the way people buy, standard shopping has always historically worked. We tried Performance Max, couldn't get it to work. We moved back to Performance, and we did a split test to see, and the way we found it working was standard shopping. And I think I've covered this on other podcasts, but I think everyone felt that when I think when Performance Max was first released, it was still in beta. It was still
Yeah,
they were
I
still
think
tinkering
so.
with the thing. It was
Yeah.
a mess. It was an absolute mess, and it didn't work. There's not.
No.
You find me someone that told me it worked. It didn't. For the
Yeah.
first 18 months, it was a nightmare. It has absolutely got better in the last year, 18 months. It
Yeah.
has definitely got better. And I think we're using it more. And I was reluctant to use it. We were reluctant. And I think a lot of brands would sort of go, oh, this is a new shiny thing. I want to use it. Oh, it
Yeah.
doesn't work, but I'm going to maintain. Like everything with Performance Max, the more time and effort you put to, one, learn it, two, really optimize it. If it wants loads of assets, put loads of assets in. Don't
Yeah.
put the minimum in. Make sure you optimize your feed. Make sure you're ticking the boxes. Make sure you go to town on your audience signals. Don't just do the minimum. And if you do that stuff well and you're feeding it the right information and you're getting the right number of conversions, it will really work for you. But Google
Hmm.
themselves have said, don't put all your eggs in the Performance
Yes,
Max
exactly.
basket.
Yeah.
So it should be, I think of Performance Max as the cherry on the cake, not the cake. I wouldn't want
Hmm.
to be any account to be wholly reliant on Performance Max. I want it to play a role. I also want my search campaigns to play a role. And I think it's important for e-com, particularly if you've got products that are very consumable products, which is a lot of ours in the home garden space. I think standard shopping can play a role. And I certainly think for you, I would be taking maybe a category and I'd be running it. Get your chap to listen back to this pod. I would be getting him to experiment with it and just see, because it might just surprise you. We've got campaigns that perform. Shopping is outperforming Performance Max, and it's not
Yeah.
just one or two campaigns. I'm talking a good few.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting actually because the eye has come off shopping a little bit. Well, it has really, like, because Performance Max, everybody's talking about Performance Max.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the new kind of black box, I suppose,
Yeah,
for
it's a black
Google.
box
And
within a
like,
black box. Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
completely closed off, and they
Yeah.
control it, and
Yeah.
it just gives them more control. But you can also see now what Google is starting to do with adding filters onto the side of search pages now. So like. We do see it in the US more so. They're kind of rolling it out across the US. I've seen it once or twice in the UK. They kind of turn it on and they turn it off, whereby, let's just say somebody searches for a specific type of insulation
Yeah.
in the US, and then up we pop, and then maybe a couple of others, and I've seen it in the UK as well. But they have filters now on the left hand side: thickness, color, R values, brand, all that sort of stuff. And you click it, it filters out the
Yep.
products.
Yep. Yep.
And next, what I see happening, an add to cart button's going to appear fairly soon, and Google, you'll be buying these products directly off the Google search page, which is going to be fed from Google Merchant Center.
Yeah. It is. Well, I
And
mean,
and
that's
that's where it's
that's
going. There won't be a need
it
for a
is.
website anymore.
Well, you say that, no, I'm with you. I mean, you look at, it gets very technical, but like SGE, the way Google's rolling that out, so the search generative experience,
Yeah.
that too is going to play in to, more being done in the SERPs,
Yeah.
the fewer clicks, everything at your disposal, leveraging AI and incorporating its, Google's framework. So I think, yes, you've only got to look at, the way that Google is leveraging AI and all of that stuff. It is an overarching trend, but I think as marketers, as SME businesses, I think what we've got to make sure that we're doing is leaning into that, understanding how to get the most from it, but as you say, diversifying it. And I think with standard shopping, just gives us a little bit, let's retain what control we can have. Similarly
Mm.
with our search ads, but let's also
Yeah.
make sure we're optimizing the campaigns to their fullest, because you will get a better performance. A question I did have, and I don't know, and I'll be interested in your thoughts on this. Have you, with your ads you're running, you're getting good ROAS, they're obviously going to be, the campaigns are well set up. It sounds like you've got a mix, of variety of campaigns. Do you feel have you hit the threshold where you're starting to see diminishing returns yet? Why you're spending 50K a month, why are you not spending 100? Have you tried to go beyond the 50, 60K and then you start to see a drop? Or what is the limiting factor there? Why are you not further scaling it?
Yeah. So I suppose there's a load of different factors here at play. So ultimately, our budget for marketing with the likes of our Google spend, etc., is pretty much unlimited, right? I mean, we don't have a cap on it,
Sure. Yeah, of
but
course.
we do have a cap in another roundabout way on the overall health of the business. Like what I was saying earlier on, we're not going
Yeah,
to
yeah,
go out
yeah,
and start kind of
yeah.
have campaigns running a single digit ROAS returns, because that just doesn't make sense. So yes, you do start to see diminishing returns on investment, and it's at that point where we go, okay, that's starting to reduce on its ROAS. let's pull back the spend again. Let's get the ROAS back up again on that campaign. And this additional budget we have, let's put it into this campaign down here that's performing well. Let's get that going. And
Fine.
then once you start to see diminishing returns on that, you start to pull back on that and you find that sweet spot. But that takes time. That's not something that you figure out in the first month or 2 or 3 months. That's like 12 months, 2 years, just constantly tweaking campaigns and changing budgets, making sure you're hitting the ROAS you want. And then sometimes you might decide, you know what, we're going to push the boat out on this one for a little while,
So
see how it goes.
this time last year, what would your ad spend have been roughly? Just would it have been roughly the same? Have you, is it, how much has it increased year on year? I'm just curious.
I'd actually say our ad spend is probably in around the same, because of the way
And
we
how
have the
much
whole
of
thing
that
set
do
up.
you think? How much of that do you think is because you're doing the experimentation? Because I think every brand hits this. Every brand gets to that point where it's like, this feels comfortable. I can maintain. I'm making good margin. I'm seeing increased competition, and that's why I asked the question, because I think it's always interesting where that glass ceiling is for the different brands, depending on where you are in your life cycle. So I think that's telling that if last year you were doing roughly the same spend this year, because I mean, look, frankly, in the last 12 months, Google have put their prices up. There is increased
Yeah.
competition. So you
Mm-hmm.
must be seeing, if you haven't increased your budget because you've been focused on maintaining the ROAS, which commercially makes a lot of sense,
Mm-hmm.
you must be seeing less footfall to the website, paid that is,
Yeah, so like our
year on
cost
year.
per click has gone up, right? So,
Yeah,
but then I mean, you'll see some months where the cost per click drops back down again, because I mean, what you have is this fluctuation of these other competitors come in, they dip their toe in to try compete with us on ads because we're so strong on our ads. They realize after 2 or 3 months they're losing their shirt on their ads. Their ROAS isn't hitting the
yeah,
numbers they
yeah,
needed to hit, so they have
yeah,
to pull back. You have to,
yeah.
right? So we're maintaining our market share and we're holding that, and we're able to maintain our ROAS because Google sees us as like a big site. Okay. And the fact we're around so long as well, as I said, we're the longest installation company, and then Build for Less came
Sure.
in behind that afterwards. So from Google's perspective, we've always performed very well with getting orders out on time. Customers are happy, and they can see all that through ads. And then when they crawl the site, etc., how the site is
Yeah,
set up.
yeah,
So they would see us as a good, reliable vendor online that they can send traffic to, and they know the traffic's converting, and they're getting paid. So, and it's maintaining that. But yeah, I mean, cost per click has gone up. Footfall has probably come down because the way our ad spend is kind of set up. So, I mean,
yeah,
we're
yeah,
not just going to keep throwing money at it. We're very clinical on how our
yeah.
ads perform. So,
How have you seen if the CPC's gone up? What about the CPA, so the cost per acquisition? How has that changed?
it hasn't changed a huge amount. It's probably increased maybe 10 or 15%, but it wouldn't be
Which would
anything too detrimental, to be
Well,
honest.
those kind of numbers would be in line with the Google increase in terms of the CPCs anyway.
Yeah,
So that kind of would
yeah,
align. And that's also, if I think about our client portfolio, that's very much in line. That 10 to 15%, you're having to spend that to maintain. And I think it's a reaction to the market, the increased competition, for all the
yeah,
things we've discussed. I think we're just naturally seeing that. So you're almost having to invest a little bit more to maintain, which goes back to the
yes,
original point.
yeah,
But that, if you're maintaining that, and has that had it as your, because that's fine so long as your AOV is being maintained in your LTV. So that
yes,
average order value, has that improved as well? Because the last thing you want to do
yes,
is see your CPA going up and your average order going going the other way.
yeah, yeah. That's a scary.
That's what you
That's
don't want to
scary
be seeing,
times.
right?
Yeah, yeah. No, our
But is that,
AOV
how does
has
that do?
increased. Yeah, no, that's increased. Like I mean,
Which it
our
kind of then
average order value.
offsets
Sorry.
that. So I was going to say, because that then offsets the CPA, and that's how your overall maintain as the
Yes.
commercials hit
Hmm.
your ROAS, and you push on from there, which is really good. Okay, amazing. Well, look, I mean, we've covered a lot there. We've covered a lot of ground, and hopefully, it's given you a few things. I think there's a couple of things there that I would definitely be keen to get your chap that's doing it in
Mm.
house to have a look at. Hopefully, if it get him to watch this back or listen to it back, and there might be a few things that he might have thought of or things that he won't have thought of, but I think that taking that commercial view into the ads, I would be experimenting with the standard shopping. I mean, there's so many things we haven't. I wanted to talk about retargeting, because are you running standalone retargeting campaigns in addition to what you're going to get out of Performance Max?
Yeah. So and we run lookalike campaigns also.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
but you're not doing anything on Meta, are you, at the minute? Like your paid social
No,
stuff?
no, we don't do anything on social. What we've actually found on social, we actually were at one point, and we pulled back from it because it became so difficult to attribute where the sale actually came from, right? So you had Meta saying, "Oh, we got that sale." Then you had
Yeah,
Google
yeah,
saying, "Oh, that sale came from us," and that completely throws off all your marketing figures. You don't know where the sale is actually coming from. Okay, the customer may have gone onto Facebook, seen the ad, and then seen the ad on search or
yeah,
on a PMax campaign, then clicked it. But ultimately, it, it was very difficult to find where last click attribution actually came from. I know you can
yeah.
kind of filter it out, but it kind of throws your numbers off because Facebook was saying we gave you this much in sales, Google saying we gave you this much in sales. You add them all together, you're there, lads. That doesn't make sense,
Yeah, no.
So it just got to a
So
point where we
on
said,
that,
turn it off. It's not worth it.
fine, fine. So, but on that, a couple of things. So, yeah, the reason, I guess why Meta's saying that. These platforms are like walled gardens, right? So
Yeah.
fundamentally, the way Google and Meta report on a conversion is very, very fundamentally different. Meta for the most part is going to use impression-based data. Google's going to use click data, etc. So, and also by default, Meta's going to have a 7-day view, a 1-day click in terms of an
Hmm.
attribution. So Meta loves taking the credit for
Yeah.
any purchase. So someone's only got to see an ad, and Meta's going to would go straight into your campaign and suddenly be reporting a 20, 30, 40
Oh
rise.
yeah, and you think it's amazing. You're going, oh, these campaigns are just
Yeah,
amazing.
no.
But then when you really delve down into the
Oh
details
yeah,
and get under the bonnet, you kind of
yeah.
realize, nah, this is all
There
reporting
are some
wrong.
things you can do within the settings, to sort of mitigate that to a point. You're never going to get them to, sing on the same hymn sheet. You're never going to get the data aligned. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But one thing that I want to leave you with on the pod, something to think about is, yes, I know from a tracking perspective and from a conversion measuring and stuff like that, it can be difficult. There's no
Mhm.
getting around that. There are things you can do to minimize the night and day difference. There are some things you can do there, and I'm happy to talk to you after the pod about those. But beyond that, I would say to you, if this was my business, even though putting tracking to one side, does it not make common sense to be on that platform from a retargeting standpoint and just see, and I take a view that, frankly, for a relatively trivial sum, you could keep your brand top of mind with the quite literally tens of thousands of people that are on your website, and see it as a high tide raises all the boats. So see it as this is another string to the bow. It's another way of keeping the brand top of mind. It's another platform to be on. We're only going to go after the people that have been on our website, and we're going to have offers, have strong CTAs to drive footfall back to the website. In part, I would take the view of I can measure that by the footfall I'm getting to the site, and I can draw a rough calculation in terms of X clicks equals Y conversions, which equals this amount of revenue.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to track it exactly, because if you
Hmm.
look at Meta, it's going to over. If you look at Google, it's going to underreport. But for the commercial gain, I would see that as it could potentially give you that extra 10, 15%, which would more than offset what you're seeing, one, in spend on Meta, but also in the increasing competitiveness within Google. I think not retargeting on via Meta, you are definitely leaving money on the table, even if you can't track that money.
Yeah, and I think you're right. That's exactly what we were doing before when we kind of decided to pull away from it, the retargeting and the lookalikes within Meta.
I
And
wouldn't even do lookalikes. I'd just do retargeting.
yeah, and it's funny you should bring it up because it has been something that's been in the back of my mind the past number of weeks. Should we just be doing something small on social? And
I,
we've
I,
actually
re- I,
recently spoke about that in the office with the marketing team that we need to probably just
you
dabble a
do,
little bit in it.
you do.
That
Put
is
a hundred,
on the
put 100 quid
cards.
a day on it. Put 100 quid
Yeah.
a day on it. You're going to spend 3 grand. It's 5% of your marketing budget.
Mm.
Why wouldn't you do that to keep put your campaigns? You could split test, run some conversion based campaigns, run some brand awareness campaigns specifically to your audience. Have really strong offers, and incentivize the people to come back to the site. for a couple of grand a month to get so many more eyeballs, because what you're not only going to see is you're going to drive people from those the Instagram, Facebook, but you're also going to it's just a reminder, it's a prompt. Oh yeah, I was in the middle of buying that product. I need to go back to Build for Less. I need to go and view. For me, that is some of the best money you could spend, and it could give you that competitive edge on top of what you're already seeing and doing within Google. Google Bing should always be the primary, but take a little cheeky 5%, put it into that platform just for, because this is not cold on. These are only people that have been on your website, that have engaged, that have purchased. Upload your customer list to it. That stuff. Keep the brand top of mind. That's got to be worth a couple of grand a month.
And it's brand awareness also. Kind of, you're saying
it feeds into the nurturing side of it. It's staying top of mind, and particularly when you think about the economic climate right now, and you think about people are putting stuff off. They've been on the website. You retarget them for 90 days. You're staying top of mind as they go through that consideration, as we come out of the back of the election, and start people come back from their summer holidays. They get into September, October. Actually, I want to crack on with that project.
Exactly.
That makes all the sense in the world.
And that's what happens, especially when the elections are over and you're saying everyone comes back off holidays. Everyone comes back in September rejuvenated, with a bit more energy. Kids are back to school.
And you think that you've uploaded that customer list. You've got that pixel. You've pixeled those people. You've got that. How many more sets of eyeballs is that if you're not on that platform, you are solely reliant on them searching once more. There's a lot of people that might not be searching, or that might be searching but might not be clicking your ad. They might be going on to one of these fly-by-night competitors.
Yeah.
So I mean,
for sure.
Did you have any other questions or anything, my friend?
No, I think we've covered a lot. I mean, in relation to the type of campaigns that you guys run for some of your other campaign, or for some of your other customers, what would be your best performing campaigns?
I don't want to give you the classic marketer's answer of it depends. I think, in terms of sheer thing, the obvious one, branded search campaigns are always, on a pure ROAS, are always going to be,
they're always good,
printing money, right? So that's almost a given. I think, we've got campaigns that are doing, as I mentioned, really well with standard shopping. I think Performance Max is really good. Performance Max has almost become a go-to. We are getting some accounts, getting really good ROAS, but I think Performance Max can work, but it takes more work than I think people think. I'm trying to think some of our standout campaigns that are doing really, really well. What have we got? Do you know what? We've got a real mix, because we do some e-com, and then we do a lot of e-com, and then we do a lot of lead gen as well, all within this home garden space. So we're seeing, and so a lot of ours is very seasonal. So we see the summer period, which is now what we're in, is huge for us. So we will see massive increases in terms of those campaigns. One of the things that we do, which not a lot of, I don't know if you do this, but not a lot of brands do, is when we're dialing up, say, Performance Max campaigns, because of the lead time, because of the learning phase is a lot longer than any other campaign type, we start to build that much earlier. So we'll start our summer building campaigns in terms of building them and starting to grease the wheels and sort of get things going from March, from back in Q1
I think
into
that's
Q2.
Important,
because you've got to get the machine. What you don't do, and what I've seen brands do and they get it wrong, is because they get a nice campaign ticking along quite nicely, spending 10K a month, gets to peak and they go, right, we need to dial that up to 30K. And then what happens is Performance Max, particularly, the wheels fall off.
Oh, totally.
And so we build these things, we build them up over a long time. But I think, to answer your question, it is a mix. We've got a real mix. We're doing a lot of Performance Max. A lot of Performance Max. We are doing more standard shopping than I think a lot of brands probably think we are, because I think a lot of brands think, oh, performance, it doesn't work. So my biggest takeaway for you would be, don't, as long as you split the products up, don't overlook standard shopping, because I think we're getting some really, I've got a few accounts that are getting 7s and 8s and 9s and 10s in terms of ROAS through standard shopping, spending a good few quid, spending some decent sums.
Yeah, and that's interesting.
I also love retargeting campaigns standalone outside of Performance Max. And we've got one campaign that's, it just blows my mind, this one. They are one of their best conversion campaign types, display. You don't see that very often, but display campaigns,
display can work well.
really, really well.
Mm.
Depends on the
But
product
like,
mix that we
isn't that
offer.
like what PMax is doing now, really, as well? Like, I mean, it's all going into displays. Well, not
Well,
all, but like, I mean, display is
what
part of the PMax package.
exactly, and that because with some of the lead gen, we're starting to play with demand gen as well. Because that again, think of demand gen campaigns as a watered down, non-e-commerce version of Performance Max, and
Yeah.
that again is too early to tell for us. We're playing with it, but that again is quite an interesting campaign type that I
Mm.
think has good potential. I think demand gen right now is doing what Performance Max did 2 years ago. It's like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
come out, it's new, it's it's got a few little quirks, but I think it's got potential there to be quite interesting.
Yeah.
Especially if you're focused on not so much for you, but for lead gen, I think it could be quite interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, there's some
John Paul,
interesting
I've
things
had
coming down
loads of
tracks.
fun. This has
Yeah.
been a really good conversation. Thank you so much for jumping on. It's been an absolute pleasure. Take a couple of those bits, let your guys listen to this back, and hopefully they can action a few bits and bobs. And best of luck with business. I think you clearly know what you're doing, and I think you've got every chance of hitting that 20 mil turnover by the back end of next year.
That's the plan, anyway. Thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Best of luck, mate. Really appreciate it. Look after yourself, and we'll speak
Thanks
soon.
so
Yeah, take care.
much. Bye bye.
Well, there you go. That was John Paul. What a great business that is. I just find that fascinating because a lot of the brands we get on the pod are not that size. They're sort of the 1, 2, maybe 3, 4, 5 mil turnover. And frankly, most of a lot of the brands we work with are at that sort of size. Those first few million. We do have a couple that are that sort of 10, 15, 20 mil size. But the mainstay of our campaign, of our portfolio, is those smaller businesses, and they have what we touched on at the start is that often that over-reliance on paid, and I have to work with them from a digital consultancy perspective, from a strategic standpoint, to go, right, yes, we can work with you in terms of the service we provide, in terms of come up with a clear strategy and improve that ROAS and drive your business forward from a paid perspective. But also, what are you doing with the traffic you're nurturing? What does your organic strategy look like? What does this look like? And really challenge them, not because we're going to provide the service, but because you as a brand, you need to be thinking about that stuff. Really, really important. And it's great to see, with Build for Less, what they've done is John Paul recognized that, look, as we're growing, we don't want to continue to have that kind of reliance. So he's doubled down with his email marketing, with his organic strategy. And that is now he's getting, a really nice business there where he's got a nice mix, makes him more robust. And as you heard him say, he's going to be playing the long game while all these competitors are coming in because their business model is not sustainable. And I think there'll be lots of you watching this that are seeing that increased competition. And I think there's something to be said for what John Paul was saying there about just actually play the long game, wait it out, don't knee-jerk react to what you're seeing in the market, and just keep pressing on, keep doing the good stuff, and you will come through it. It's definitely what our clients doing. It's what John Paul's doing, and it goes to show whether you're doing the first million or two, or whether you're aiming to hit 20 million in the next 18 months. It's very possible. What a great conversation that was. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care.